Hi everyone, and welcome to Protocol 36, and in today's video we'll be talking about how Spider-Man No Way Home could have a massive impact on the MCU. Now before we get started, if at any point you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you could drop a like, as that would really help out the channel. Thank you. If you've been following the channel for a while, you will know that I believe Norman Osborn will play a huge role in the MCU, sooner or later. However, this time we do have reports from the HashTagShow talking about the fact that not only one, but two Norman Osborns will come into the MCU. I'll be reading out the article and giving up my thoughts and theories on how it can possibly go down. Beware though, this is a rumor and nothing has been confirmed yet, so take this report with a grain of salt. But if you want to read it for yourself, I'll leave it in the description down below. So the article states, we know Norman, played by Willem Dafoe in the Raimi films, is making his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut. Many people have questions about what this means for the MCU. Part of this new deal means that Marvel has access to characters that they didn't have before. Norman Osborn / Green Goblin was one such character. Disney and Marvel Studios have wanted to use him, but his rights were exclusive with Sony, meaning Sony were able to use him in full, but Marvel Studios up until last week couldn't. Obviously things got murky with the inclusion of Willem Dafoe's Goblin, but that has sort of softened up Sony to the idea of sharing the character. Marvel Studios plan to bring Willem Dafoe as the primary villain for Spider-Man No Way Home, but I can exclusively share that because of this most recent deal, there now exists a separate version of Norman Osborn in the MCU. Peter will begin to research his Earth's version of Norman Osborn after fighting with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, but there's a twist. He's seemingly not an awful guy. He has political aspirations, makes charitable donations, and even supports the Avengers. They're playing off the idea that it's a different Earth and no villain or hero is guaranteed to be on the same path. What Marvel wanted to do is explore Norman more, and without putting him in a Goblin outfit, at least not right away, start to peel back the layers of his villainy. This will take place over the next 3 to 5 years as Marvel begins to set him up as a major villain for both Spider-Man and the Avengers going forward. This wasn't something Marvel had finalized until last week, so we have no concrete evidence on which projects he will appear in, although there's still time for No Way Home cameo or post-credit scene. The fourth Holland Spider-Man film is mentioned in the leaked document I read, so that is a safe bet, and possibly Disney Plus series as well, as the documents I viewed mentioned that he could appear in both movies and Disney Plus series. Marvel has offered the role to an actor who has not accepted the role yet. This actor is a prominent New Yorker who has history with Marvel Studios. When or if the deal is finalized, we'll share more. We know that Spider-Man No Way Home will feature the multiverse in a meaningful way, but now that Marvel and Sony have signed a new agreement, there's going to be some big ramification for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, and we'll have to see Marvel explore a different dimension, pun intended, for some of our favorite heroes and villains. Now, if you've been following all the leaks and reports that have been going around Spider-Man No Way Home, and even my previous video where I speculated who the main villain was going to be in the film, which if you haven't checked it out, I'll leave it in the card in the right hand corner of the video for you guys to watch. But Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin, has been a recurring character that has been appearing in all those leaks and reports, specifically Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Now we don't know if he's going to be from the Raimi trilogy, though from the sound of everything that we've heard, he definitely could be. Even though he died in that universe, there could be ways in which they could bring him back, like time travel or divergent timelines. I am a little skeptical about Willem Dafoe returning as Norman Osborn, especially if his Norman Osborn is going to be from the Raimi universe, as not only do they have to explain how he came back, but also his version of the character will have to develop a rivalry against Tom Holland's Peter Parker, as at the end of the day it is MCU's Peter Parker's film, so whoever the main villain is going to be, I feel like it has to be from the MCU's reality, and possibly having a personal connection with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, as if Willem Dafoe is in fact going to be the Norman Osborn from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, then he would have more of a personal connection with Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker instead of Tom Holland's, as there was already an established relationship between Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, and obviously with James Franco's Harry Osborn being the best friend of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, there's also a very personal link between those two versions. So whatever they do with Norman Osborn in Spider-Man No Way Home, assuming he's going to be in the film as the main villain, they'll have to develop his hatred for Spider-Man, specifically Tom Holland's Spider-Man, as he's the main character in the film. But with there potentially being a Norman Osborn that's already in the MCU, we just have to wait and see how it plays out if this does turn out to be true. Though I doubt that they're going to be using Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy in this film, but at the end of the day I could be wrong. And with Jamie Foxx and Willem Dafoe returning as Electro and Dr. Octopus respectively, now I think it's safe to say that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield may in fact be in the film, playing their own respective Spider-Man from their own franchises. And for Electro, even though Jamie Foxx said that he'll probably look different, which many people, including myself, thought that he might be playing a different version of the character. There's a chance that his character may have survived in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and his powers evolved in a way where he's able to change his own appearance back to normal if he chooses. Though that's just a theory and we don't really know how he's going to look like in Spider-Man No Way Home. Though I think there's a chance that they'll probably give him a look similar to his 616 counterpart. But what's also extremely interesting is the fact that the film could end with Tom Holland's Peter Parker specifically, researching his version of Norman Osborn to see if he's going to be anything like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. But then to find out that he's actually a good guy and that Tom Holland may not think he's a big deal right now, since the Norman Osborn he was fighting was from a different universe. Because of that, there's a chance that his version of Norman Osborn from the MCU could in fact be a good guy instead, because this is Norman Osborn we're talking about. He's eventually going to be a bad guy, or at least a bad guy who's pretending to be a good guy, which is kind of Norman Osborn's thing. And the fact that he could show up in Tom Holland's 4th Spider-Man film and possibly even other Disney Plus shows, which, assuming this is true, is very exciting to hear. As in the past, I did make a video whether or not he's going to show up in the Secret Invasion Disney Plus show, as he did play a major role in that story, specifically towards the end when he was leading the Thunderbolts and was the one who pretty much saved the day, which eventually led up to him taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. and forming the Dark Avengers. And with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier's finale potentially setting up the Thunderbolts, I can definitely see that being the case. And I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel comes out and announces a Thunderbolts Disney Plus show, which in my opinion would be awesome. I also saw a lot of people speculate the fact that he could appear in the Armor Wars Disney Plus show, which could definitely happen, especially if Norman Osborn is trying to become the new Iron Patriot for the MCU. And honestly, I wouldn't mind that happening. Either way, I think it's safe to say that we won't see the Green Goblin until much later on, and when they introduce Norman Osborn into the MCU, he will not only be a wealthy businessman as the owner of Oscorp, but also potentially be the mayor of New York, kinda like in Spider-Man PS4, which would also be pretty awesome to see if that turns out to be true. Though that's a theory on my part, based on the fact that the report says that he has political aspirations, which could eventually lead up to him becoming the Iron Patriot. And with the brand new deal Disney and Sony made recently, putting the Spider-Man movies into Disney Plus after 2022, which unfortunately will only be on the US, there's a massive chance that Spider-Man will stay in the MCU and his characters and stories could further impact the universe in ways that we haven't seen before, especially with a character like Norman Osborn, potentially having him lead the Thunderbolts and forming the Dark Avengers. However, what about you guys? What do you think about the report and Spider-Man No Way Home possibly bringing not only Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, but also a different Norman Osborn from the MCU who will be played by a different actor? Do you think it could be true, or do you think this report is fake? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. Want more? Subscribe. To begin, Protocol 36.